So the environment that Ayanna Jones grew up in, like, was she 7 years old, I think, when she died? Who was her lawyer? Jeffrey Feiger. And nothing against Feiger. Feiger does what he does well. But with all the bragging about black civic leadership in this town, the history of black civic leadership, the great minds that have informed this city, you tell me there's not one prominent civil rights lawyer who's willing to step up to the plate and say, in fact, everybody back off. We're going to take this case. This is, in fact, pro bono. We want to send a message that black kids, their lives do matter in this town. You tell me there's none? Yes. So we sit down and we adore and we idolize a Damon Keith. We idolize a Morris Dees, right? We idolize others in history, right? Charles Hamilton Houston and others in history. And we talk about how great and how impactful they've been. But they're human beings. They have the same qualifications that these very individuals I'm talking about have today. You probably went to the same school as Charles Hamilton Houston. You probably graduated from Howard University or some other university. You probably went to the same as Morris Dees. In fact, Morris Dees did not go to Harvard College of Law. He went to University of Alabama. But today, he will be remembered in history as one of the most important civil rights lawyers of the last century. Right? Because his contributions to history are so grand that even someone from Harvard Law School cannot even compare their greatness to Morris Dees' greatness. Right? That is the commitment that one can make when you're committed to a cause. So, enough of celebrating the past. And I think we should focus more about the future. And now, let's go to Reggie. Reggie has a question or comment.
Hey, good afternoon, Bankley.
Good afternoon.
You're absolutely right. I'm glad that you brought this issue up. The Damon Keiths and the other gentlemen for civil rights that you mentioned.
Yeah.
The people following them, they do not have the heart and they don't have the backbone to stand up and even attempt to do what these two gentlemen have done for our community and really our nation, period. Take, for example, you look at the 13th Congressional District issue. You got people that chest pounding and they're running for the 13th Congressional seat. They haven't even spoken up on the issue of taxation without representation. And if you're not fighting for the people now, what makes us think you're going to fight for us if you made it to Washington? You look at the Amazon deal. From listening to some folk and from my research on it, there was a lot of tax incentives and subsidies offered to Amazon. I've heard Horace Sheffield say it was twice. I heard him say it was a total of $900 million offered to Amazon. That's taxpayers' money. Taxpayers didn't have any input. No involvement. Okay? And none of these lawyers have spoken up on behalf of the taxpaying citizens of Detroit. So the people that in the Amazon deal that was making all the decisions, I would say 90% of that committee is white, and they do not live in the city of Detroit, and they're controlling our money. They're giving our money away. And not one lawyer, not one council person have raised issue with it. But we got lawyers and council persons running for Congress.
Yeah.
So again, you're absolutely right. And I'm just saying, Bankley, these folks today, they don't have the heart and they don't have the backbone of Morris D. and Damon Keith. So thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Reggie. 313-792-5555. 778-7600. We're saying you can't. Somebody said they can't hear what we're saying here. Let's see. There should be, I think, Brian Cartwright is saying he can't hear what we're saying, what we're talking about. Let's see if we can increase the volume here. But just going back to Reggie's point, though, and the reason why I raised this, I think it's important. I've been observing a lot lately in this town, and just so many buried contradictions, and now there's no sound. All right, interesting. Brian Cartwright said now there's no sound. Okay, we'll try to fix that. But there's so many buried contradictions in terms of what I see in the city, and in terms of civic leadership. There's so many buried contradictions because, one, we talk about Detroit being a great city, has a great legacy and so forth, but unfortunately, when you look at the legacy, when you look at what is going on now, it doesn't compare to what the legacy requires, right? The legacy requires that, in fact, the city, the legacy requires that, today's, all right, the legacy requires that the city, that there be a continuity, right? That it has to continue, right? The struggle for equality continues, and that from one generation to another generation, right? And I've been to a lot of events, enough events to understand, to see how sometimes people are willing to talk about how great the past is, to talk about how wonderful the past is, to talk about how the past is such, wonderful, it's great, we remember back then, this was when it was the golden time and so forth. So what about now? Now is not the golden time anymore. And if now is not the golden time or the golden era anymore, that's because the generation or this dispensation has failed to take up the leadership, right? I just give you a quick classic example. I gave you the example of Ayanna Jones, who died in a police encounter, right? I think it was Officer Wakely or something in the police department who was involved in there, right? Ayanna Jones was a big issue, national story. Like I remember Reverend Al Sharpton came and gave the eulogy at Ayanna Jones's funeral at Second Ebenezer. I was there. I sat way at the back watching as it all was playing out. Jeffrey Feiger was Ayanna Jones's lawyer. Came and, did his thing as he does well, right? But Ayanna Jones was a little girl, a little black child who was denied the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The question is, how comes there are no black civil rights lawyers who are willing to basically represent Ayanna Jones? Well, you can give me an easy way out. Well, we can't tell the family what to do. Maybe the family decided they wanted Feiger so Bankole. You can't just, blame people. The family wanted Feiger, so we can't do anything about it. But that's not the first time. That's not the first time Feiger has represented black kids. Damon Grimes, again, is Feiger, I think, right? And other issues. So all I'm saying is, I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty. All I'm saying is that we can't keep bragging about the past. Some of us like to go to George Keith's Soul Food Luncheon. It's a great event, by the way. In fact, I got an invitation from the judge in the mail about being his guest at his Soul Food Luncheon, which is held in his chambers at the Federal District Court. We like to go to George Keith's Soul Food Luncheon and, and enjoy ourselves and just, marvel at his greatness and all the things he has been able to do, and rightfully so. He's a man that has achieved a lot. He's a man that has been at the center of black life. Is a man that has done so much for his people and for his community. He's a man that was ahead of his time, but he was no magician. What he did was not extraordinary. What he did was simple. It's called courage. It's called the courage to hold power accountable. That's what George Kidd did. You know, he was no magician. George Kidd was no Jesus Christ. He was no Moses. He was no prophet Jeremiah. He wasn't, you know, prophet Amos. You know, George Kidd was just a man who was committed, a man who just mustered enough courage to hold power accountable. A man who felt that equality would only be a meaning when the men and women with power begin to write it in words, right? And then see that it is enforced. So we talk about the city's great history, its great legacy and all of that. But unfortunately, there is really no continuity, right? And I just give you an example of Ayanna Jones and Damon Grimes and others, right? We've had many cases here. We've had many issues in this town where you would expect, you know, black lawyers to step up to the plate, right? Right? Issues that speak to black life in general. I'm not just saying that, you know, you get a traffic ticket and get a lawyer, or, you know, you have some, you know, issues you want to, you know, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about issues that are at the center of black life, right? Like the Ayanna Jones situation when she was killed. You know, that was about black life. Little girls, can they be safe in their city? Damon Grimes was an important marker. That case was an important, the Damon Grimes situation with the state police is such an important marker that I would have loved to see a prominent civil rights lawyer in this town step up to the plate and say, you know what, we will take this case. We know Feiger has done a lot. You know, he represents his clients well, but guess what? We would love to take this case pro bono because this is a bigger issue about policing and black life. But we do not see that. But we walk around here with our chest bragging about how great and wonderful we are, the best schools that we went to, you know, the nice suits that we wear, and the, you know, high-powered invitations we get to all the galas. We talk about all of that. But what good does it do? Like Dr. King said, life's persistent question is, what are you doing for others? So Damon Kidd's era has gone. You know, Morris Dees is still active, but the larger part of his engagement has gone, right? That era has gone. Now is the time to ask the question, where is the current leadership? You know, Detroit is not bereft of talent. Detroit has a lot of talent. I come across a lot of brilliant lawyers, smart like a whip, very smart. But where is the courage? Where is the courage? The next police brutality issue that takes place in this town, what happened? Jeffrey Feiger takes the case. Now understand, I'm not playing the race card. What I'm doing is I'm challenging black civic leadership in this town, right? I'm gonna keep repeating this so it can sink in. I went to Ayanna Jones's funeral. I sat at the bar, like I always do when I go to church. I sit way at the bar just to observe and see. And I watched. Reverend Sharpton gave the eulogy, made Ayanna Jones's case a national crisis for black kids. And I watched Jeffrey Feiger, the white attorney, walk to the podium and did his thing like he does it well, and talk about Ayanna Jones's life. You tell me that there is no prominent black civil rights lawyer who could have taken that case pro bono and step up to the plate, or a group of black civil rights lawyers and say, we want to send a message here. There's something about black life that needs to be understood, and that black lives is as precious as white life.